Hi, you clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Wednesday. Today we're going to be playing around a little bit with winter hurricane season analogs. What you're looking at right here are the December temperature anomalies across the United States of the winters of all first year moderate to strong La Niñas since 1950. Notice how it's of course very warm across the eastern and southeast United States on average for these winters, and of course this famous December of 2010 here completely disobeyed that rule, being very cold across the east, pretty much the opposite pattern to what we are normally. I went back and looked at every single one of these analogs. The only one that even came close to disobeying this pattern along with 2010 was 1988 here. Notice the cool over the eastern United States, the warmth kept back over the central plains. You still got the cool back over the west here, and it's really not that cold in the east. Certainly nothing like 2010 here. We've got anomalies greater than 6 C below normal. Here we've only got anomalies down to maybe 1, 2, or 3 up here in Maine below normal, with a lot of neutral in between. So really not all that cold, but there is reason to consider this as similar to 2010 in some respects, because it's the only other year from the package here that even tried to deviate from this normal pattern of blowtorch warmth into the east during first year December La Niñas. Here's the 500 millibar pattern for December of 1988. Notice the big trough over here, the NAO positive with a trough down through Greenland, but sticking its nose into the eastern United States with the ridge back to the west, allowing cold air to fall in. This looks very similar to the second half of January that we had here in 2011 just recently. Notice the trough into the eastern part of the United States despite no blocking up here. Big trough extending all the way down into the eastern United States. What's interesting about both these periods is that this was the transition between what was a cool December in the east and what became a very warm January and February in 1989. The winter reversed and became what it would normally look like, very warm in the southeast United States, as we are reversing now. Remember, we're getting ridging now into the southeast, and we're starting to see warmth show itself the way a typical La Niña would have it for the very tail end of our winter this year. The difference being that we're transitioning far later now than we were in 1988, but if we look at the transition period, we can see that the month where this was going on had the similar trough here, ridge back west, similar to what we have now with the ridge off the west coast, and the deep trough digging into the east. If we look at the hurricane season of 1989, we see that the 11 storms. It looks worse than it is on the map here, because we got a nice cluster in the deep tropics here. Nice healthy activity. 11 named storms, 2 majors. Very average season overall, but what I would call a very healthy season given all the nice activity in the typical breeding grounds. No messy work up here in the subtropics where little storms try to form and don't do a whole lot. Nice healthy season here. Not much going on in the Western Caribbean. We had, of course, the famous one this year was Hurricane Hugo hitting the South Carolina coast. Couple more hurricanes hit the Houston, Galveston area here, so 3 hurricane landfalls that year. Some recurvatures, but the main feature here is lots of activity in the tropics, and one of them got away and ran ashore. Now, the thing about this season is, given the pattern that we had during the first part of the winter, the first half of the winter, when you get the trough in the eastern United States, means that surface pressures are going to be lower off the eastern seaboard. That implies weaker trade winds down here to the south, which won't lower the heat content of the water down here quite as much in the deep tropics, because normally when you get the ridge over the southeast United States in the wintertime, you speed up the trade winds and cool off all this water in the deep tropics before the season. Makes it hard to get the heat content built back up before the season begins. If you delay that transition to warmth over here in the eastern United States, then you don't necessarily beat down the heat content down here as much. And we can see, if we look at the sea surface temperatures for August of 1989, despite this being a cold AMO year, the water still got pretty warm down here in the tropics. Would be interesting to see how warm these actually got during a second year La Niña season during a warm AMO period such as what we are in now. After a winter like this, where we kept it cold in here and allowed the water to stay fairly warm during the winter, more similar to what it would be in an El Nino winter than a La Niña winter. Gonna have to watch that. The waters are starting to cool off a little bit now as we're finally reversing the pattern, but since the winter's already almost over, we're not going to be cooling these waters off as much as we would have been in a typical winter. If we go ahead and look at, there's only 4 seasons during warm AMOs of second year La Niñas since 1950. If we put them all together here, they're 1955, 1996, 1999, and 2008. If we put these together, moral of the story here, lots of long track storms north of the Caribbean aimed right at North Carolina. I've showed you this before, how these years have a lot of targets aimed at North Carolina here. They really get nailed in years like this, and all and up and down the eastern seaboard generally gets whacked in second year La Nina seasons aimed farther west with the track spread here during warm AMO years. So it'll be interesting to see how this season turns out. Just things to watch right now, and we'll keep investigating this as time marches on. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.